Okay, Algebra 2, I am out today for a funeral, so you are going to be learning this on Schoology. You have an assignment that is these notes to fill out, and then the worksheet to complete as well. I am taking it up for a grade, with no excuses. Like I'm over this, y'all. I can't learn on videos. You know what? You're like 16, 17, 18. It's time to buckle down and get over yourselves. You're gonna have to learn things in life in ways you don't want to learn. I'm going through a funeral. Shut up, get your work done, do this. And if you don't get it done, there's no excuses. You can come after school for tutoring if you need help. You can come to my math time if you need help. But otherwise, if you don't get this done, it's going in a zero. Period. I'm over this, y'all. So there's my hate message to y'all for the morning. Get this done. And don't try me because it's going in there. As far as the gradebook update, I'm going to be updating the gradebook for anybody who finally completed the what's it called? The Delta Math. I'll be completing that and upgrading that, either updating that probably tomorrow, like Tuesday. Yeah, there's like some people have turned in their blue sheets finally. There's quizzes to add, things like that. So whatever. With that said, I'm going to get going. Today you're going to be learning about, look up here, note 6.5 square root transformations. So you're going to basically learn about transformations, what they look like and what they do. We're going to be learning so far everything basically when the x just has a 1 in front of it. Like, you see how if I did that 1 right there, there's technically a 1 there. So everything I'm teaching you only works if there's a 1 with an x right there, which is fine because it does teach, it's a lot of good stuff to learn. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and talk about this. This right here, the square root function. The square root function is very simple to understand. It basically means this. If I were to basically take a number, let's say like a 4, if I were to say, hey, I want you to plug a 4 into this. So I'm going to plug a 4 into this equation. And it's going to look like this. And this is just the parent function, right? I plug this in, and I evaluate this. So if I plugged in an x, right? If I plugged in an x of 4, you don't have to write this down. If I plugged in an x that was 4, what does this evaluate to, the square root? It evaluates to 2. Well, if I plugged in a 9 for this formula, what would it evaluate to? It would evaluate to a 3. So can you see those points right here? So right here, if I plug in a 4, it's going to evaluate to a 2. Makes sense? Because there's your y right there. So you plug in a 4, you take the square root, and you get the 2. Same thing here. If I plug in an x for a 9, and then I take the square root of my 9, what's my output going to be? It's going to be this one right here, which is 3. So plug in a 9, get in there. So if you were to plug in a 16, if you were to plug in a 16, a square root of 16, what would the output be? It would be a 4. So somewhere down here, maybe right here, is a 16 on this graph. And if it kept going all the way over here, it'd go up to 4, and you'd basically write the 4 up here. So that's where these numbers come from. What do the transformations look like? I'm going to show you that right now. And if you didn't catch that, pause that and rewatch that again. I'm going to take you to Desmos. Okay, so here's what we have here essentially for the square root function. You can see it right here. Look what happens when I go to plug in a 4. I get a 2. What happens when I plug in a 9? I get a 3. What happens when I plug in a 1 over here? I should get a 1 because the square root of 1 is 1. So that's where these numbers come from. So what happens when you start doing things to it? Well, remember that whole thing about your x's lie and everything outside of the x's tells the truth? Let's start with this. I'm not going to put anything next to x, but outside of the square root house, I'm going to say plus 3. Based on what we know about the rules of transformations, my guess is this should shift it up 3. And it does. It just takes the entire graph and shifts it up 3. That's all it does. What if I did minus? Notice it follows the rules. This one doesn't lie to you. What if I did minus? It would go down. Okay, that's no big deal. We have that basically understood. What happens if I have something on the inside, though? This one right here, this says x plus 2, and it's inside the house. This sign is going to lie. So since this sign is lying to you, the x's lie to you, my guess is that it's going to shift left 2. And it did. It's going to shift left 2. So if I put in a minus 2, it should do the opposite and go to the right. And it did. Watch that again if you need to, but otherwise, pretty much straightforward. Nothing new here. So if I put a number in front on this one right here where it says y equals 2 squared of x, what's it going to do? It's either going to stretch or compress it one way or another. When I put in a whole number, you can see what it does. It kind of like stretches it upwards towards the sky. If I put in a fraction, you see that? It flattens it out. So a fraction flattens it, and then the bigger number kind of makes it bigger. So that's the basics of this right here. So now let's look at this last one. if I were to put this entire thing in here, let's remember these two right here. If I were to put the entire equation in there, let's talk to ourselves. What would it do? Well, the vertex, what's the, I didn't even tell you about the vertex. Before I go anywhere, the vertex is this butt right here. See, it's like right there. That little thing, where it starts is the vertex. So the vertex basically is hidden inside this formula all the way. You're going to see it right now. Let me undo that one. Yeah, so check it out. So we know from the 1/2 that it's going to squash it down. Cool. That's what's going to happen. We know that our x's lie and that it should shift to the left too. So this thing should shift to the left too. Okay, good to know. And then we know it should go up 3. Let's see if that's the case. Boom. That's exactly what it did. It went left 2, it went up 3, and it's flattened out the curve. So now check out what our vertex is. Our vertex is -2, 3. Can you see that? Can you see that over there in the equation? I have that x plus 2. Remember, it lies. So that's a -2. And then outside of it, I have that plus 3. So there you have it. That's the basics of this. This is what those transformations do. You can get, even with just this, you can get some of that sheet done. I don't need perfection. I need effort. And so, yeah, that's the main lecture. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next video.